I used to tell myself that my family's inability to respect a locked door was just a personality quirk. Annoying, but harmless. That was before I found the unauthorized login on my work computer. I assumed they were just looking for salary details or gossip. I never imagined that a few copied files would turn a Sunday dinner into a federal investigation, or that I would eventually have to choose between my mother's freedom and my own. My alarm went off at 5:30 in the morning, slicing through the quiet of my apartment like a knife. I did not hit snooze. I never hit snooze. My life was built on a foundation of hard, deliberate lines, and waking up the moment the day demanded it was the first line of defense. I rolled out of bed, my feet hitting the cold hardwood floor, and began the routine that kept me sane. Coffee, black, shower, hot, a quick check of the headlines, ignoring the opinion pieces. By 6:15, I was in my car, merging onto the interstate before the traffic could thicken into a parking lot. I liked the early shift. I liked the silence of the office before the sales team arrived with their loud voices and their wet umbrellas and their constant need for validation. My job was not glamorous. I worked in operations for a mid-sized logistics technology contractor called Ardent Supply Chain Solutions. When people asked me what I did at parties, I told them I managed paperwork for freight shipments. Their eyes would glaze over within 10 seconds, which was exactly the way I wanted it. If I told them I specialized in compliance, audit trails, and reconciling international shipping manifests against federal export controls, they might ask questions I did not want to answer, or worse, they might think it was interesting. It was not interesting. It was tedious, exacting, and repetitive, and I loved it. I loved the safety of a spreadsheet where every column balanced. I loved the certainty of a bill of lading that matched the purchase order, in a world that felt increasingly chaotic. My job was a fortress of order. I kept that fortress strictly separated from my family. For years, I had maintained a demilitarized zone between my life at Ardent and my life as a Rodriguez. It was a survival mechanism. My mother, Elena, loved with a suffocating intensity that often felt less like affection and more like surveillance. My older brother, Leo, was a man who moved through life expecting doors to open simply because he was standing in front of them, and if they did not open, he would try to pick the lock. And then there was the extended network of cousins and uncles, a sprawling web of small-time business schemes and petty grievances that I had spent my entire adult life trying to outrun. They did not understand boundaries. They understood leverage. Sunday dinner was a mandatory sentence. I had missed the previous two, citing a fictional heavy workload, so I knew I had to show up this week or risk a guilt trip that would last until Christmas. I parked my sedan in my mother's driveway, taking a deep breath to steel myself before walking up the path. The house smelled of roasted garlic and lemon cleaning spray, the scent of my childhood. When I walked in, Leo was already there, sitting at the kitchen island with a beer in his hand. He looked tired, the skin around his eyes loose, but he flashed that grin that had gotten him out of trouble with the local police 3 times in the last decade. "There she is," Leo said, raising his bottle. "The ghost returns." "I have been busy, Leo," I said, hanging my purse on the coat rack in the hallway. I checked the clasp. It was a reflex. I always made sure my bag was closed. "Work is crazy." My mother turned from the stove, wiping her hands on a floral apron. She looked at me with that familiar mix of adoration and critique. "You work too much. Nora, you look pale. Are you eating? You look like you're living on vending machine crackers." "I eat plenty." "Mom," I said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. "It smells good." "It is pot roast," she said. "Your favorite. Or it was your favorite before you became too fancy for us." "I am not too fancy," I said, taking a seat at the island. "I am just tired." The dinner was standard fare. My mother piled meat onto my plate as if caloric intake directly correlated to maternal love. Leo talked about a new venture he was looking into, something vague about flipping leased vehicles. I nodded in the right places, asked polite questions, and offered zero personal information. This was the dance. Give them nothing they can use. "So," Leo said, chewing on a piece of carrot, Tommy was asking about you the other day. Said he tried to call you. I stiffened. Tommy was our cousin, a man whose business cards changed every 6 months. I must have missed it. He says you are impossible to reach, my mother added. He has some questions about shipping. For his business. I told him you are the expert. I set my fork down. Mom, I do not know anything about Tommy's business, and I cannot give advice on shipping. It is complicated. There are liability issues. Leo laughed. A short, sharp bark. Liability issues. Listen to her. You act like you work for the CIA. Nora, it is just boxes on boats, right? Why do you have to be so secretive? I am not being secretive, I said, keeping my voice even. I am being professional. My contracts have non-disclosure agreements. Everything is a secret with you, my mother said, pouring more gravy on my potatoes even though I had not asked for it. You do not tell us who you date. You do not tell us where you travel. You act like a spy. It hurts my feelings. Nora, we are family. We are supposed to share everything. I share what I can, I said. Can we talk about something else? How is the garden? They let it drop. But the air in the room had changed. There was a tension there, a vibration of resentment that I was withholding something that belonged to them. I finished my meal, helped with the dishes, and left as soon as I politely could. When I got into my car, I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me. It was not physical. It was the specific fatigue of having to defend a perimeter against the people who were supposed to be inside it. I drove home, locked my door, and collapsed onto my sofa. The first sign was a light. It was Monday evening. I was sitting in my living room, reading a paperback, trying to decompress after a day of auditing freight invoices. My work laptop sat on the desk in the corner. I had not touched it since I came home. I never worked from home unless it was an absolute emergency. I liked the physical separation. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the screen wake up. The room was dim, so the sudden blue glow was startling. I frowned. Lowering my book, I watched as the login screen illuminated the room for 30 seconds, then faded back to black as the machine went back to sleep. I stared at it. Computers did strange things, updates, notifications. Maybe the cat had jumped on the desk. Though I did not have a cat, I stood up and walked over to the desk. The laptop was closed. I touched the lid. It was warm. I opened it and logged in. The event viewer showed nothing unusual at a glance. Just a wake timer. I told myself it was a scheduled virus scan. I told myself I was being paranoid because of Leo's comments at dinner. I shut the computer down completely, powering it off, and went to bed. Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed while I was in the shower. I checked it when I got out, dripping water onto the bath mat. It was a notification from my personal email provider. Password, reset request. I frowned, toweling off my hair. I had not requested a password reset. I tapped the notification. It said the request had been initiated at 7:15 in the morning. I had been asleep at 7:15. I scrolled down to the location data. The request had originated from an IP address in Westbury. Westbury was 2 towns over. It was also where my mother lived. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I sat down on the edge of the toilet seat. It was probably a glitch. IP geolocation was notoriously inaccurate. It could be miles off, or maybe I had clicked something by accident in my sleep. That was impossible. But it was a more comforting thought than the alternative. I denied the request, changed my password to a string of random characters that I wrote down in my physical notebook, and tried to push it out of my mind, but the unease lingered. It felt like a loose thread in a sweater. If I pulled it, the whole thing might unravel. On Wednesday, my cousin Tommy called. I was at my desk at Ardent, staring at a spreadsheet of tariff codes for a shipment of ruggedized servers going to a port in Southeast Asia. When my cell phone rang, I saw Tommy's name and debated letting it go to voicemail, but if I ignored him, he would call my mother, and then my mother would call me, and the cycle would repeat. "Hello, Tommy," I said, stepping into the empty hallway. "Nora, great to hear your voice," Tommy said. He sounded too cheerful. Tommy was a salesman who had never found a product he actually believed in. How is the big city corporate life? I live in the suburbs. Tommy, and it is fine. What can I do for you? Right. Straight to business. I like that. Look, I have a quick question. You know about shipping classifications, right? Like how they decide if something is a commercial good or something else? That is a very broad question, I said. What exactly are you trying to ship? Me? Nothing. A friend of mine. He is in a dispute with a vendor. He says they are mislabeling some components to avoid fees. He mentioned something called an ECCN. Does that ring a bell? My grip on the phone tightened. ECCN stood for Export Control Classification Number. It was not something you dealt with unless you were shipping dual-use technology, items that could have both commercial and military applications. It was not something Tommy, who mostly sold refurbished office furniture and gym equipment, should know about. That is a regulatory term. Tommy, I said carefully, if your friend is dealing with ECCNS, he needs a customs lawyer, not a cousin. Sure, Tommy said, his voice dropping a little. But just hypothetically, if you have a shipment that is stuck, and they are asking for technical specs, that is just standard, right? It does not mean anyone is in trouble? Tommy, who is asking for specs? Just the freight forwarder, or the carrier. I do not know. Look, Nora, you have access to those databases, right? Could you maybe just look up a vendor for me? Just to see if they are legit? It would really help me out. This guy promised me a cut if I can help him unclog this mess. I cannot use my work access for personal favors, I said, my voice sharp. That is a fireable offense. Do not ask me to do that. Okay. Jesus, Nora, relax. I was just asking. Family helps family, right? Forget I mentioned it. He hung up before I could say anything else. I stood in the hallway, looking at the gray carpet. My heart was beating a little too fast. ECCNS, vendor disputes. It was specific, too specific. It sounded like phrases he had read off a piece of paper. I went back to my desk, but I could not focus. The numbers on the screen looked like gibberish. I kept thinking about the password reset, the location tag, the spy comments. Then the email came. It arrived at 2 p.m. with a deceptively boring subject line. Notice of preservation. It was from the compliance department, not the general inbox, but from the personal account of the director of compliance, a woman named Sarah Jenkins, whom I had spoken to exactly twice in 5 years. Dear Nora, please be advised that effective immediately, you are required to preserve all correspondence, documents, and data related to Project Cedar Harbor. This includes all internal drafts, external communications, and audit logs. Do not delete, modify, or alter any files associated with this project. A formal hold notice will follow. Regards, Sarah. I stared at the screen. The office sounds, the hum of the printer, the chatter of the sales team, faded into a dull roar. Project Cedar Harbor. It was a project I had worked on 8 months ago. It involved coordinating a shipment of specialized networking hardware to a newly built port facility in a partner nation. It had been a headache of a project, full of last-minute changes and documentation errors from the supplier. But we had closed it out. The cargo had been delivered. The client had paid. Why was there a preservation notice now? Preservation notices usually meant one thing: an investigation, either a lawsuit or a regulatory inquiry, and they were asking me to preserve records. I felt a sudden, irrational urge to run, to grab my purse and leave the building. But I stayed in my chair. I was innocent. I had done my job. I had nothing to hide. But my family did. The thought hit me with the force of a physical blow. Tommy's questions, the password reset, the laptop waking up. I closed my eyes and tried to think. Sunday night, I had left my purse in the hallway at my mother's house. My laptop was in my bag. I had been in the kitchen for an hour, helping with dinner. Leo had been in the living room, or had he? I opened my eyes and typed in my password. I needed to know. I navigated to the system logs on my machine. I was not an IT expert, but I knew enough to check the event viewer. I filtered for Sunday evening. There it was, 2014. System wake, 2015. User login. At 8:15 on Sunday night, I was eating pot roast and listening to my mother complain about her neighbors. I was not logging into my laptop. I scrolled down. 2017. USB, device connected, volume name, LEO_backup. My breath hitched in my throat. Leo, 2018. File transfer initiated. Source, C:\users\n, Rodriguez \documents \work current basic work, destination, E:. They had copied the basic work folder. The name of the folder sounded generic. I had named it that intentionally. A catch-all for the files I needed to access quickly without digging through the company's labyrinthine server structure. But the contents were not basic. That folder contained my cheat sheets for HTS classifications. It contained a list of our top 50 vendors with their contact info. And it contained the Cedar Harbor audit notes. I had saved a local copy of my personal notes from that project because the supplier had been so disorganized that I wanted a paper trail of every discrepancy I had found. Just in case they tried to blame us for delays, those notes detailed shipment irregularities, mismatched serial numbers, and my own internal comments about the vendor's sloppy compliance. If someone outside the company saw those notes, without the context of the final resolved shipping documents, it would look like we had knowingly shipped questionable hardware, and my brother had copied them to a drive called LEO_backup. I felt sick. A hot, acidic wave of nausea rolled through me. I pushed my chair back and grabbed my phone. I walked out of the building, not stopping until I was in the far corner of the parking lot, hidden behind a row of SUVs. I dialed Leo's number. He picked up on the second ring. "Nora, everything okay? Did you touch my laptop on Sunday?" I asked. My voice was shaking, but I forced it to be loud. "What?" "My work laptop. It was in my bag in the hall. Did you touch it?" "Whoa, calm down," Leo said. "I do not know what you are talking about. Do not lie to me." "Leo, I have the logs. I can see the timestamp. I can see a USB drive called Leo_backup was plugged in at 8:17 p.m. Did you copy my files?" There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence. Then, Leo's voice changed. The charm evaporated. "You are always so paranoid," he said. "Always assuming the worst. Did you copy the files?" "I needed a flash drive, okay? I thought maybe you had some movies or music on there. I plugged it in to check. I did not know it was a crime to borrow a USB port." "You copied a folder. Leo, you copied the basic work folder. Why?" "I did not copy anything," he said, too quickly. "Maybe I dragged and dropped something by accident." "My mouse is sticky. You are making a big deal out of nothing." "It is not nothing," I hissed, looking around to make sure no one was walking by. "Those are company files. That is proprietary data. If anyone finds out you took that, I could go to jail. Leo, do you understand? Jail." "Oh, stop the drama," he said, sounding annoyed now. "Nobody's going to jail. You are just embarrassed because you have all these secret files and you do not want your family to know what you actually do. You treat us like we are stupid, Nora, like we cannot understand your precious logistics. This has nothing to do with you being stupid. It has to do with theft." "I did not steal anything," he shouted. "You know what? I am done with this. I try to take an interest in your life, and you treat me like a criminal." He hung up. I stared at the phone, my hand trembling. He was gaslighting me. He had done it 1,000 times before. Stolen $20 from my wallet and claimed I lost it. Borrowed my car and returned it with a dent and claimed it was there before. But this was not a dented fender. This was federal data. I dialed my mother. She answered immediately, her voice thick with emotion. "Leo just told me you screamed at him. Mom, Leo stole files from my work computer while we were eating dinner. "He did not steal," she said. "He told me he was just looking. We are worried about you. Nora, you are so distant. You hide everything. We just wanted to understand you. We wanted to see what is so important that you cannot spend time with your family." "You hacked my computer to understand me?" I asked, incredulous. "Mom, that is insane. That is a betrayal." "Do not use that word," she snapped, and then she began to cry. "We love you. We are the only people in the world who love you unconditionally, and you treat us like enemies. You care more about your boss than you do about your own brother." "This is not about love," I said. "This is about the law. Those files are regulated. If Leo does anything with them—" "He is not going to do anything," she sobbed. "He is your brother. He would never hurt you. Why can you not just trust us?" I listened to her weeping. It was a sound that used to break my heart. It used to make me cave, make me apologize, make me do whatever she wanted just to make the tears stop. But standing in that parking lot, with the cold wind biting through my blouse and the terrifying weight of the preservation notice in my mind, I did not feel guilt. I felt clarity. "I cannot do this," I said quietly. "I cannot do this right now." I hung up the phone. I stood there for a long time. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I needed to tell someone. I needed to go back inside, walk into Sarah Jenkins's office, and tell her everything. My family accessed my laptop. They copied files. I did not authorize it. I am a victim here. I started walking toward the building. I rehearsed the words, but as I reached the glass doors, I stopped. I thought about how it would sound. My brother stole my data because he was curious. It sounded pathetic. It sounded like a lie. And even if they believed me, what would happen? They would have to report it. They would have to bring in external auditors. My security clearance would be pulled immediately pending an investigation. I would be suspended. I would be the woman whose family was a security risk. In this industry, your reputation is everything. If I was labeled as compromised, I would never work in logistics again. I would be unhireable. And Leo, if I reported this officially, Ardent would sue him. They might press criminal charges. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act was not a joke. Did I want to be the one to send my brother to prison? Did I want to be the one to destroy my mother? Fear paralyzed me. The fear of looking incompetent. The fear of being the villain in my family's story. The fear of losing the one stable thing in my life, my job. I could not tell them. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly what Leo had done with those files. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he just looked at them and deleted them. Maybe it was just a stupid, boundary-crossing invasion of privacy and not a corporate espionage plot. I took a deep breath and turned away from the executive suite. I walked back to my cubicle. I sat down. My hands were still shaking, so I clasped them together on my lap. I opened my drawer and took out a fresh, black notebook. I did not open a digital file. I did not trust the computer anymore. I uncapped my pen and wrote the date at the top of the first page. January 31st. Then I began to write. Sunday, January 25th. Laptop accessed without authorization at family residence. 2017 p.m. Files copied to external drive, LEO_BACKUP, folder, basic work. Monday, January 26th. Attempted password reset from Westbury IP. Wednesday, January 28th. Cousin Tommy inquiries regarding shipping classifications and vendor disputes. Specific mention of ECCN, Wednesday, January 28th. Receipt of preservation notice regarding Project Cedar Harbor. I documented every anomaly. I wrote down the times, the names, the specific phrases used. I created a record. If the sky fell, if the investigators came, I would have this. It was my insurance policy. But as I wrote, looking at the ink soak into the paper, I knew it wasn't enough. The preservation notice and the theft were connected. I didn't know how, and I didn't know why. But the timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. My family had not just invaded my privacy, they had walked me onto a minefield, and I had just heard the click of the trigger under my foot. I closed the notebook and locked it in my drawer. Then I turned back to my screen, opened the Project Cedar Harbor folder, and began to read, looking for the poison that my brother now carried in his pocket. The office was quiet again. The sales team had gone to lunch. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the frantic, terrified beating of my own heart. Thursday morning began with a lie I told myself. I told myself that if I just went to the IT help desk and asked a casual question, I could gauge the severity of the situation without triggering an alarm. I was an operations manager. I solved problems for a living. I could solve this. I walked down to the second floor, where the IT department lived in a climate-controlled hive of humming servers and tangled cables. I approached the walk-up counter. The technician on duty was a young man named Kevin, who usually wore vintage band t-shirts and looked like he had not slept in 3 days. Today, he was wearing a button-down shirt, which was the first bad sign. "Hey, Kevin," I said, leaning against the counter. I tried to keep my posture loose, my voice bored. "Quick question for you. I was working from home earlier this week, and my laptop was acting a little funny, laggy. Just wanted to make sure I did not pick up a bug or something. Can you take a quick look?" Kevin nodded, sliding a keyboard toward me. "Sure. Nora, log in for me." I typed in my credentials. My heart was thudding a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I watched Kevin's face as he navigated to the security logs. I expected him to roll his eyes, run a quick virus scan, and tell me to reboot. Instead, his typing stopped. He stared at the screen, then he clicked once, twice. He leaned closer to the monitor. The silence stretched out. It was only 5 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes. "What is it?" I asked. "Just a glitch?" Kevin did not answer. He did not look at me. He picked up his desk phone and dialed a 4-digit extension. He waited, his eyes locked on the screen. "Hey," Kevin said into the phone. "This is Kevin at the desk. I have a Tier 1 anomaly on a user device. Asset tag 4492. Yeah, no, she is right here. Okay, I will hold." My stomach dropped. Tier 1 anomaly sounded expensive. It sounded dangerous. "Kevin," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "What is going on?" He finally looked at me. The boredom was gone from his eyes, replaced by a guarded, professional opacity. "I cannot clear this ticket. Nora." The system flagged a login pattern that requires a supervisor override. "It is probably nothing, just a security protocol." "You said Tier 1, I said. "That does not sound like nothing." "Just hang tight," he said. He did not smile. He typed something else, and I saw the window on the screen minimize. "Someone from InfoSec is going to come down and take a look. Standard procedure." It was not standard procedure. Standard procedure was a lecture about phishing emails and a ticket number. This was containment. I stood there for 10 minutes, shifting my weight from foot to foot. Feeling the heat of the server room blowing against my ankles, I wanted to grab my laptop and run, but I knew that would be an admission of guilt. So I waited, trapped in the amber of corporate bureaucracy. When the elevator doors finally opened, it was not an IT supervisor who stepped out. It was Sarah Jenkins, the director of compliance. And walking beside her was a man I did not recognize, a man in a charcoal suit that cost more than my car. "Nora," Sarah said. Her voice was perfectly level. "Let us go upstairs. We need to chat." We went to a conference room on the 4th floor. A glass-walled fishbowl that overlooked the parking lot. The blinds were drawn. The man in the suit placed a leather folio on the table and sat down. "Nora, this is Mr. Sterling," Sarah said. "He is outside counsel from Barton and Weller." "Outside counsel?" I asked. I sat down, keeping my hands in my lap so they would not see them shaking. "Is this about the preservation notice?" "It is related." "Mr. Sterling said. His voice was smooth, baritone, and completely devoid of warmth. "Nora, we have detected some irregularities in the access logs for your assigned device. Specifically, Access to files related to Project Cedar Harbor occurring outside of business hours and from an unauthorized location. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. We are opening a formal internal inquiry, Sterling continued. At this stage, we are gathering facts. We need to know if you authorized any third party to access your device. No, I said. The word came out too fast. No, I did not authorize anyone. I live alone. I have family nearby, but I did not give anyone my password. It was a half-truth. I had not given them the password, but I knew who had used it. And by not saying his name, I was becoming an accomplice. We see a data exfiltration event on the evening of January 25th, Sterling said. He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a printout of the log I had seen myself. A folder labeled Basic Work was copied to an external drive. Can you tell us what was in that folder? Just templates, I lied. Forms, stuff I used to build reports, nothing sensitive. Sterling looked at me. His eyes were pale gray, like dirty ice. Nora, we need you to be very careful with your answers. If we find out later that regulated data was in that folder, and you failed to disclose it, your liability increases significantly. I am telling you what I remember, I said. I would have to check the folder to be sure. We will be checking the folder, Sarah said. In the meantime, Nora, you are to discuss this meeting with no one, not your colleagues, not your manager, and certainly not anyone outside this company. This is a privileged conversation. If you speak about this investigation, you will be terminated immediately. Do you understand? I understand, I said. Good, Sterling said. You may return to your desk, but do not access the Cedar Harbor files again. We have locked that directory. I walked back to my cubicle feeling like I was made of glass. I felt exposed, protected, in a twisted way, because they had not fired me on the spot, but isolated. I was carrying a secret that could destroy me, and I was legally forbidden from asking for help. When I sat down, I did not work. I opened the local copy of the Basic Work folder, the one on my desktop, not the server. I needed to see exactly what Leo had taken. I clicked through the subfolders. My memory had been charitable. I had told myself it was just templates. It was not just templates. There was a subfolder called Screenshots. I opened it. It contained 30 or 40 images I had snipped during the Cedar Harbor audit. One was a screenshot of a shipping manifest where the weight of the cargo did not match the weight declared on the export license. I had circled the discrepancy in red digital ink and added a note. Weight variance exceeds 5%. Potential unmanifested cargo? There was another screenshot of an email chain with the vendor, a company called North Tech Logistics. In the email, the vendor's representative had written, "Just mark it as General Electronics to avoid the delay." I had highlighted that sentence and added a tag, compliance violation, misclassification request, and there was a spreadsheet, a checklist I had built to track the audit trail. It included internal order numbers, the names of the customs brokers, and the specific reasons why we had flagged the shipment for review. It was a roadmap. If someone wanted to blackmail the vendor, these files were the ammunition. If someone wanted to undercut our company by leaking proof of our internal chaos, these files were the weapon, and my brother had them. I felt a vibration in my pocket. I pulled out my phone. It was a text message from Tommy. I stared at the screen, and the blood drained from my face. It was an image, a screenshot, but it was not a screenshot from his phone. It was a photo of a computer screen. On that screen was my checklist, the very same spreadsheet I was looking at on my monitor, below the image. Tommy had typed, "This is exactly what we needed. Thanks, cuz dinner is on me next week." My hands went cold, numb. The world narrowed down to that tiny, glowing screen. He had it. He was using it, and he was thanking me for it. I stood up. I could not breathe in the cubicle. I grabbed my phone and walked to the stairwell, pushing through the heavy fire door. The concrete echo of the stairs was the only privacy I had. I dialed Tommy's number. "Hey, Nora." He answered on the first ring, He sounded euphoric. I knew you would come through. Leo said you were being sticky about it, but I told him. Nora is family. She gets it. What did you do? I whispered. I could not find my voice. Tommy, what is that picture? That? That is the smoking gun. Baby, Tommy said. That bit about the weight variance? And the email where they asked you to mislabel it? That is gold. Absolute gold. Who is it gold for? I demanded, my voice rising. What are you doing with my files? It is just for arbitration, Tommy said. Like I told you, my friend is in a tight spot with North Tech. They are trying to screw him on a contract, but this proves they play dirty. It proves they have a history of fudging the numbers. We just show them this, and they settle. Boom. Done. You are blackmailing a federal contractor with stolen data, I said. Tommy, listen to me. This is not a business dispute. This is a crime. You have to delete it. You have to delete everything right now. Whoa, relax, Tommy said. The euphoria slipped, revealing a jagged edge of panic underneath. Nobody is going to the cops. It is just leverage. It is how business is done. Nora, you know that. I know that people go to prison for this, I shouted. The echo rang in the stairwell. Who is this friend? Who is pushing you to do this? Nobody is pushing me, he said, too defensively. I am an entrepreneur. I am making moves. Look, just chill, okay? I already sent the file. It is done. You sent it? I felt the floor tilt. Sent it to who? To the lawyers, the arbitrators, whatever. It is out of my hands. Just be happy you helped the family win one for once. I did not help you, I screamed. You stole from me. We did what we had to do, Tommy snapped. And do not act like you are so innocent. You have all this power, all this access, and you hoard it. You let us scramble for scraps while you sit in your air-conditioned tower. You owed us this, Nora. He hung up. I sank down onto the concrete step. I put my head between my knees. I was hyperventilating. He sent it. My internal audit notes were now in the hands of some unknown third party, being used as leverage in a dispute I knew nothing about. I checked the time. It was 1 p.m. I went back to my desk. But I was a zombie. I moved my mouse. I opened emails. I deleted spam. I was waiting for the axe to fall. I was waiting for Sterling to walk out of the conference room and point a finger at me. At 3:00, my phone rang again. It was my mother. I did not want to answer. I wanted to throw the phone into the trash can. But if I didn't answer, they would escalate. They would show up at the office. Hello? I said. Nora? Honey? My mother said. Her voice was soft, wheedling. It was the voice she used when she wanted to smooth over a crack she had made. Leo tells me you are upset. He says you are worried about your job. I am not worried. Mom, I am terrified. Do you have any idea what Tommy has done? He is just trying to make a living. Nora, things have been hard for him. For all of us. That is not an excuse to steal my work files. We did not steal, she said, her voice hardening. We borrowed, and honestly, Nora, after everything we have done for you, I would expect a little more gratitude. I froze. Gratitude? Do not forget who took you in, she said. Do not forget who was there when Mark left you. Who gave you a bedroom when you could not pay your rent? Who cooked your meals when you were too depressed to get out of bed? We saved you, Nora. We put you back together. The guilt hit me like a physical slap. She was right. 5 years ago, my marriage had imploded. I had been a wreck, financial ruin, emotional collapse. I had moved back into my mother's house for 6 months. Leo had helped me move my furniture. My mother had held me while I cried. I know you did, I said. And I have paid you back. I pay your mortgage every other month. Mom, I paid for Leo's lawyer when he got the DUI. Money is cheap, she spat. We gave you love. We gave you loyalty. And now, when your brother and your cousin need a tiny favor, a victimless favor, You act like we are criminals. You are selfish. Nora, you have always been selfish. This is not about being selfish, I said, my voice trembling. This is about me losing my career. This is about Homeland Security. Oh, please, she scoffed. Homeland Security? For a few boxes? You always overdramatize everything. Just let it go. Let Tommy win this one, and stop making your mother cry. She hung up. The manipulation was masterful. It twisted the knife in the exact scar tissue she knew was there. The divorce was my greatest failure, and her support was the debt I could never repay. She was weaponizing my lowest moment to justify her betrayal. I sat there, feeling the tears prick my eyes. I blinked them back furiously. I would not cry at work. Then, a notification popped up on my screen. Access denied. I blinked. I had been trying to open a folder on the shared drive, the operations_general folder. It was a folder I accessed 50 times a day. I tried again. Access denied. Contact administrator. I tried to open my email archive. Access restricted. I looked up. Across the aisle, my colleague, David, was looking at me. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away, pretending to be fascinated by his phone. They had cut me off. It was a soft suspension. They hadn't escorted me out of the building yet, but they had severed my digital limbs. I was sitting at a dead terminal. I looked around the office. Everyone seemed to know. The silence around my cubicle was heavy. People walked by with their heads down. I was radioactive. I could not sit there anymore. I could not sit there and wait for them to come for me. I stood up and walked to the elevator. I pressed the button for the 4th floor. I walked straight to the conference room where I had met Sterling. It was empty. I went to the reception desk. I need to speak with Mr. Sterling. I told the receptionist, "It is urgent. He is in a meeting with Miss Jenkins," she said. "I do not care," I said. "Tell him Nora Rodriguez is here. Tell him I have a statement to make." 5 minutes later, I was back in the fishbowl. Sterling looked annoyed. Sarah looked tired. "This had better be important." "Nora," Sterling said, "we are in the middle of a triage call." "It was my family," I said. The room went dead silent. "Excuse me?" Sterling said. I took a deep breath. I felt like I was stepping off a cliff. The breach, the login on Sunday, it was my family, my brother, Leo. He accessed my laptop while I was at dinner. He copied the files to a USB drive. I did not know until after it happened. I confronted him, and he denied it. But my cousin just texted me. He has the files. He is using them in a business dispute against a vendor. I said it all in one breath. The truth hung there, ugly and undeniable. Sterling did not look surprised. He looked resigned. He opened his notebook and uncapped a pen. "Do you have proof?" he asked. "I have the text message," I said. "I have the logs on my laptop that show the USB connection, and I have the timeline I wrote down." "Show me the text," he said. I unlocked my phone and slid it across the table. Sterling looked at the image of the spreadsheet on Tommy's screen. He zoomed in. He looked at the text message. "This is exactly what we needed." He slid the phone back to me. "This complicates things," Sterling said. "Significantly." "I am telling you the truth," I said. "I did not give them the files. They stole them. I am a victim here. In the eyes of the law, Nora, you are the custodian of that data," Sterling said. His voice was cold, precise. "You brought a compliant device into an unsecured environment. You failed to maintain physical control of the asset, and now proprietary data is in the wild." "I know," I whispered. "I know." "We will need to take possession of your phone," Sterling said, "and we will need the contact information for your brother and your cousin." "You are going to call them?" I asked, panic flaring again. "We are going to do whatever is necessary to contain this leak," Sterling said. "If that means a cease and desist, so be it. If it means involving law enforcement, so be it." "Please," I said. "My mother is old. She does not understand." "Your mother is not our client. Nora, Sarah said gently. The company is. I left the meeting without my phone. They had given me a receipt for it. I walked back to my desk, packed my personal items into my tote bag, and left the building. Nobody said goodbye. I drove home in silence. The radio felt too loud. The world outside the car window looked flat, gray, and hostile. When I got to my apartment, I felt the absence of my phone like a phantom limb. I could not call anyone. I could not check for updates. I was cut off. I went to my personal laptop, an old machine I barely used. I needed to log into my personal email. I needed to see if Tommy had sent anything else. I booted it up. It was slow. I drummed my fingers on the desk, waiting for the browser to load. I logged into my Gmail account. The inbox was full of spam. But my eyes were drawn to the sidebar, to the sent folder. It was bolded. I frowned. I had not sent an email from my personal account in weeks. I clicked on the folder. There was an email at the top of the list. It was time-stamped yesterday, at 3:30 in the afternoon. The subject line was, "Request for additional specs, Cedar Harbor." My heart stopped. I opened the email. To unknown address, from Nora Rodriguez, 88, Gmail. Com attached are the preliminary files you asked for. I can get the full schematic for the control units, but I will need access to the secure server this weekend. Let me know if the pricing structure we discussed is still valid. Best. Nora. I stared at the screen, my mouth open in a silent scream. I had never written this. I looked at the timestamp. Yesterday afternoon. I was at work. My personal laptop was here. In my apartment. Someone had broken into my apartment? No, that made no sense. Then I remembered. My mother had a key to my apartment. For emergencies, she always said. And Leo knew my passwords. Not because I gave them to him, but because he had helped me set up this computer years ago. He used the same variation of our childhood dog's name for everything. Leo had come here while I was at work. He had logged into my computer, and he had written this email. But why? The email wasn't sent to anyone I knew. It was a generic, throwaway address. But the content? Let me know if the pricing structure is still valid. It sounded like I was selling the data. They weren't just using the files they stole. They were planting evidence to make it look like I was the one selling them. They were framing me. Why? To cover their tracks? If the investigation pointed to me as a rogue employee selling secrets, no one would look at the brother who accidentally copied a folder. I would take the fall. I would go to prison. And they would claim ignorance. My family was not just sacrificing me. They were actively constructing the altar. I pushed the laptop away as if it were burning. I stood up and backed away until my back hit the wall. I slid down to the floor, pulling my knees to my chest. I was alone. My phone was gone. My job was gone. My family was hunting me. And somewhere in a server farm, a digital paper trail was being forged that would paint me as a traitor to my country. I did not sleep that night. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights, waiting for the sirens. But the sirens did not come. Not yet. Just the silence. The terrible, heavy silence of a life being dismantled, piece by piece, by the people who had sworn to love it. I sat on the floor of my living room for a long time, staring at the glowing screen of my personal laptop. The fake email in my sent folder was not just a smoking gun, it was a signed confession. Forged in my name. Let me know if the pricing structure we discussed is still valid. It was the kind of sentence that prosecutors put on projection screens in federal courtrooms. Panic is a cold thing. It starts in the extremities, numbing the fingers and toes, and then it moves inward, freezing the lungs until you cannot draw a breath. I wanted to close the laptop. I wanted to delete the email. I wanted to take the hard drive out into the parking lot and smash it with a hammer until it was nothing but silicon dust. But I did not do any of those things. I was an operations manager. I lived my life by checklists, by audit trails, by the immutable laws of cause and effect. If I deleted that email, I was destroying evidence. If I destroyed evidence, I was acting like a guilty woman. And if there was one thing I knew with absolute certainty, it was that I was not guilty. I forced myself to stand up. My knees cracked. I walked to the kitchen and drank a glass of water, draining it in 3 long swallows. Then I went back to the desk. I needed to preserve the crime scene. I did not touch the email itself. Instead, I opened the print dialog. I printed the email to a PDF file, saving it to a USB drive I found in my junk drawer, a drive that had never touched my work computer. Then I found the option to view the original message, the raw source code that showed the headers. It was a wall of gibberish to the untrained eye, but I knew it contained the metadata, the IP address, the time of creation, the routing information. I printed that too. Then I took my digital camera, an old point-and-shoot I used for vacations, and took physical photographs of the screen. It felt archaic, snapping pictures of pixels, but it was a way to prove what I was seeing without altering the digital environment. I sat down and opened my notebook. I wrote, Thursday, January 29th. Discovered unauthorized outgoing email in personal Gmail account. Timestamp indicates creation during my working hours at Ardent. Suspect physical access to apartment, writing it down made it real. But it also made it manageable. It was a fact. Facts could be disputed, analyzed, and disproven. I needed a second opinion, not a lawyer. I could not afford the kind of lawyer I needed yet, but someone who understood the digital world better than I did. I thought of Ben. Ben lived in apartment 3B, 2 floors down. He was a graduate student in cyber forensics at the State University. We had exchanged polite pleasantries in the mailroom for years. He was quiet, serious, and drove a beat-up sedan that was always full of computer parts. I looked at the clock. It was 7 in the evening. I went downstairs and knocked on his door. Ben opened it, wearing a hooded sweatshirt and holding a slice of pizza. He looked surprised to see me. "Nora," he said, "everything okay? You look intense." "I need help," I said. "Not move a couch help, technical help, hypothetical technical help." He looked at my face, really looked at me, and stepped back to let me in. His apartment was a maze of monitors and towers, the air humming with the sound of cooling fans. "I cannot hack anything for you," he said immediately, clearing a stack of textbooks off a chair. "Just so we are clear, I have an ethics review coming up." "I do not want you to hack anything," I said. "I want you to tell me what not to do." I explained the situation in broad strokes. I did not mention Ardent or the specific nature of the files. I just told him that someone had accessed my computer, stolen data, and sent a fake email from my account to frame me. Ben listened, chewing his pizza slowly. When I finished, he wiped his hands on a napkin and leaned forward. "Okay," he said. "First rule, do not turn the computer off. Modern operating systems do a lot of housekeeping during shutdown. You might overwrite temporary files that could prove someone else was logged in. Just let it sleep." "I took photos of the screen," I said. "Good," he said. "That is good. Air-gapped evidence. Hard to fake. Second rule, do not run any cleaner software. No antivirus scans, no disk defragmenters. Anything that moves bits around is your enemy right now. You want the state of the machine to be frozen." "How can I prove it was not me?" I asked. "The email came from my account. It came from my IP address." "Behavioral analysis," Ben said. "We look for pattern of life anomalies. If you were at work, your phone was probably pinging cell towers near your office. Your toll tag was logging you on the highway. If the email was sent from your apartment while you were geolocated 10 miles away, that is a strong defense. It does not prove who did send it, but it proves you physically could not have typed it." "My mother has a key," I said quietly. "My brother knows my passwords." Ben grimaced. "Insider threat. That is the hardest one. Physical access trumps almost every security measure. If they sat at your keyboard, they were you, digitally speaking." "So I am screwed," I said. "No," Ben said. "You are just in a complicated situation. Look, if this goes legal, they are going to image your drive. They will look at the registry keys. They can see exactly when the USB drive was plugged in. They can see if the person hesitated while typing, or if they pasted the text from a document. People have keystroke fingerprints, the rhythm of their typing. If your brother hunts and pecks, and you are a touch type, the forensics might show that. He looked at me with a sudden, sharp sympathy. But Nora, if you go down that road, if you bring in the guys who can measure keystroke rhythm, you are handing your family over to the police. There is no middle ground with that kind of data. I looked at the whirring fans of his computer tower. I know, I said. I think they already handed me over. I went back upstairs feeling slightly steadier. I had a plan. Preserve the evidence, gather the alibis, my toll records, my badge swipes at work. I could build a wall of data that proved I was not in the room when the crime happened. I was just sitting down to organize my toll receipts when the doorbell rang. I froze. It was late. Almost 9 o'clock. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Leo. My stomach turned over. I debated pretending I wasn't home, but the lights were on. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. Leo was holding a white paper bag from a local bakery. He looked disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped in a posture of exaggerated defeat. "Peace offering," he said, holding up the bag. "Bear claws? Your favorite?" "I am not hungry." "Leo," I said, blocking the doorway. "Come on, Nora," he said, his voice cracking. "Do not leave me out here. Mom is a wreck. I just want to talk. 5 minutes." I stepped back. 5 minutes. He walked in and set the bag on the kitchen counter. He looked around the apartment as if checking for something, or someone. "Nice place," he said, though he had been there 100 times. "Always so clean, so organized." "What do you want, Leo?" I wanted to say, "I am sorry," he said, turning to face me. "About the other day. I should not have yelled. I know you are under a lot of pressure at work. I know you take that stuff seriously." "It is serious," I said. "I am suspended. Leo, they took my phone. They are investigating me." He flinched. It was a small movement, a tightening of the jaw, but I saw it. "Suspended? Like, for a few days?" "Maybe forever," I said, "depending on what they find." "They are not going to find anything," Leo said quickly, too quickly. "It is just a misunderstanding. You tell them it was a mistake. You tell them, I do not know. Tell them you left your laptop open and it was an accident." "An accident?" I stared at him. "You do not accidentally copy a specific folder to a backup drive and then text a screenshot to Tommy." Leo ran a hand through his hair. "Look, Nora, I am trying to protect you here. Mom is losing her mind. She thinks you are going to get arrested. She thinks the FBI is going to kick down her door." "Why would she think that?" I asked. "Unless she knows exactly what you stole." "She does not know details," Leo said. "She just listens to Dale. Dale says these trade compliance guys are sharks. He says they do not care about families. He says you need to get ahead of the story." "Dale?" I asked. The name hung in the air. "Yeah, Dale," Leo said. "Mom's friend, you know." "I do not know," I said. "Who is Dale?" He is her boyfriend, I guess. They have been seeing each other for a few months. He is a good guy. Nora, he works in shipping too. Consultant. He has been giving us some advice on how to handle Tommy's situation." My blood ran cold. "He works in shipping? What kind of shipping?" "I do not know. Freight, logistics, the same boring stuff you do. That is why he wanted to help. He told Tommy that the big companies always try to screw the little guys on classifications. He told us what to look for." I felt the room tilt. "He told you what to look for," I repeated. "Leo, be very specific. Did this Dale person tell you to look for basic work?" Leo shifted his weight. He said operations managers usually have a working folder where they keep the real data. He said to search for terms like audit, or variance, or ECCN. He just gave us some keywords. Nora. He was trying to help Tommy win his arbitration. He played you, I whispered. He played all of you. What? No, he is helping us. He used you to steal federal data, I said, my voice rising. He did not want to help Tommy. He wanted those files. Who is he? Leo? What is his last name? Bannister, Leo said, looking confused and defensive. Dale Bannister, and he is not using us. He is taking Mom to Atlantic City next weekend. He cares about her. Get out, I said. Nora. Get out, I shouted, pointing at the door. Go home, Leo, and tell Mom not to talk to him. Do not tell him anything else about me. Do not tell him I am suspended. You are being crazy, Leo said, backing away. You are letting this job ruin your brain. He left, slamming the door behind him. I locked the deadbolt. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely turn the latch. Dale Bannister. I ran to my personal laptop. I opened a browser and typed the name into the search bar. Dale Bannister Freight Logistics. The results were sparse, but damning. There was a LinkedIn profile for a Dale Bannister, principal consultant at Global Path Solutions. The company website was a dead link. I dug deeper. I went to the state's business registry. Global Path Solutions had been involuntarily dissolved by the state 3 years ago for failure to pay taxes. I searched court records. There were 4 civil suits against Dale Bannister in the last decade. 1 for breach of contract, 1 for fraud, settled out of court, 1 for unpaid wages from a former employee. He was not a shipping magnate. He was a grifter, a bottom feeder who moved from scheme to scheme, looking for soft targets. And he had found the perfect soft target, a lonely woman with a son desperate for money and a daughter with high-level access to a federal contractor. He had not just stumbled into this. He had targeted my mother. He had romanced her, gained her trust, and then slowly, methodically, weaponized her children against each other to get what he wanted. The arbitration Tommy was fighting was likely a fabrication, or at least exaggerated by Dale to create urgency. I looked at the fake email again. Let me know if the pricing structure is still valid. Dale had written that, or he had stood over Leo's shoulder while Leo wrote it. He was setting up a fall guy. If the data sale went south, if the authorities came looking, the trail would lead back to Nora Rodriguez, the disgruntled employee who was selling secrets to pay off her family's debts. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to put my head between my knees. The phone rang. It was not a number I recognized. It was a local area code. I picked it up. Hello? Nora Rodriguez? Yes. This is Arthur Sterling. We need to talk. It was 10 o'clock at night. Lawyers like Sterling did not call at 10 o'clock unless the building was burning down. I am here, I said. I have just finished a conference call with the board, Sterling said. His voice sounded tired, stripped of the corporate polish he had worn in the office, and we have engaged external counsel specializing in national security matters. National security, I repeated. The words felt too big for my small apartment. The files that were exfiltrated, Sterling said. The Cedar Harbor audit notes. We have reason to believe that the irregularities you flagged involved components that are subject to ITAR restrictions, international traffic and arms regulations. I know what ITAR is, I said. But we were shipping networking gear, commercial servers. The concern is that the vendor may have been substituting dual-use chips, Sterling said. Restricted chips, if those audit notes get out, if they are sold to a third party, it is not just a compliance breach. Nora, it is an export control violation. It is a federal crime. I did not sell them, I said. My family took them. I believe you, Sterling said. And for the first time, I thought he actually might. But my belief does not matter. The company has a legal obligation to self-disclose this breach to the Bureau of Industry and Security within 24 hours. Once we do that, the investigation is out of our hands. Federal agents will be involved. What are you saying? I am saying that you need to prepare yourself. Sterling said, They are going to ask hard questions. They are going to look at your bank accounts. They are going to look at your family. If there is anything at all, that you have not told me, you need to tell me now. I told you everything, I said. Except one thing. What? My mother's boyfriend, I said. His name is Dale Bannister. I think he is the one who put them up to it. There was a silence on the line, the sound of a pen scratching on paper. Dale Bannister, Sterling said. I will run the name. Get some rest. Nora, you are going to need it. He hung up. I sat in the dark. The fear was gone, replaced by a strange, hollow numbness. I wasn't afraid of jail anymore. Jail was a place with walls and rules. I could survive walls and rules. I was afraid of the truth. I was afraid of what I had to do next. I picked up the phone and dialed my mother. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight and high. Leo said you kicked him out. Mom, I said, I need you to listen to me. This is the most important conversation we are ever going to have. You are so dramatic, she said, but her voice wavered. The company knows, I said. They are calling the federal government tomorrow morning. Homeland Security is going to be involved. Do you understand what that means? Nora, stop it, she said. You are trying to scare me. I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to save you. Did you copy the files? Mom, did you hold the mouse? Did you type the password? I was in the room, she whispered. I just wanted to help Tommy. He was going to lose the house. Nora, he has kids. We needed the leverage. It wasn't for Tommy, I said. It was for Dale. Do not bring Dale into this, she snapped. He is a good man. He has stood by me while my own daughter treats me like a stranger. He is using you, Mom. He is a con artist. I looked him up. He has been sued for fraud. He dissolved his company to avoid taxes. He knew exactly what files to steal because he is planning to sell them. You are a liar, she screamed. You are jealous because I found someone who treats me like a queen. You want me to be alone and miserable like you. Did he tell you to send the email? I asked. The one from my personal laptop? The one asking for money? I do not know what you are talking about, she said. But the denial was weak. It was wet with tears. Mom, I said, if you do not tell me the truth, I cannot help you. When the agents come, and they will come, they are going to ask who wrote that email. If you lie to them, you will go to prison, not me. You. He said it was just insurance, she sobbed. The dam broke. He said we needed to make sure you wouldn't back out. He said if we sent an email from your account, you would have to help us, because we would all be in it together. He said it would bind us together as a family. I closed my eyes. Tears leaked out, hot and fast. He framed me, I whispered, and you let him. We did it for you, she cried, so you would finally be on our side, so you would stop being so perfect and cold and superior. We just wanted you back. Nora! I hung up the phone. I felt like I had been hollowed out with a spoon. We did it so you would be on our side. They had destroyed my life to force me to need them again. It was a twisted, sick logic, but it was the logic of my family. I had one more call to make. I dialed Tommy. He answered in a whisper. Nora, is that you? I can't talk. Lisa is asleep. Tommy, I said. I know about Dale. There was a long pause. Who? Do not play dumb. I know Dale Bannister coached you. I know he told you what keywords to search for. I know he promised you a guaranteed win in your arbitration. He knows a lot of people, Tommy stammered. He said he had an inside track. There is no arbitration. Is there? I asked. What? No, there is. I mean, it is not formal yet, but the dispute is real. Dale said if we got the documents, we could force a settlement before it went to court. He said he knew a buyer. A mediator who could facilitate it. He said a buyer, I said. latching onto the slip. He used the word buyer, didn't he? I don't remember. Tommy, I said. This is your one chance. Did Dale Bannister promise to pay you for those files? He said we would all get a cut, Tommy whispered. He said the data was worth $50,000. He said it was just sitting there on your computer, doing nothing. He said you wouldn't even miss it. $50,000, I said. My career, my reputation, my freedom, all for $50,000 split 3 ways. Nora, please, Tommy said. I am scared. Dale is acting weird. He is asking for more files. He wants me to go back to your house. Do not go near my house, I said. Do not go near my mother. What are you going to do? I am going to stop protecting you, I said. Nora, we are family. No, I said. Family doesn't plant evidence to send their cousin to jail. You are on your own. Tommy. I ended the call. I sat there in the silence of my apartment. The timeline in my notebook was full now. I had the dates. I had the times. I had the motive. I looked at the photos of the fake email. I looked at the metadata. My family had tried to weave a net to trap me, to drag me down into their mess so I would never be able to leave them again. They had used my love, my guilt, and my trust as raw materials for their cage. But they had made one mistake. They had forgotten that I was good at my job. I was an auditor. I found discrepancies. I traced errors to their source, and when I found a rot in the system, I did not cover it up. I cut it out. I picked up my pen and turned to a fresh page in my notebook. I began to draft a new document. It was not a timeline. It was a disclosure. To Office of General Counsel, Ardent Supply Chain Solutions. From Nora Rodriguez. Subject, Voluntary Self-Disclosure of Unauthorized Access and Internal Conspiracy. I wrote until my hand cramped. I wrote down Dale's name. I wrote down the conversation with Leo. I wrote down my mother's confession about the insurance email. I wrote down Tommy's admission about the buyer. I did not spare them. I did not soften the edges. I laid them out on the paper like specimens on a dissecting table. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. Every sentence felt like I was severing a limb. But as the pages filled up, I felt a strange, cold strength returning. I was not the victim anymore. I was the witness. And tomorrow, I would testify. Friday morning at Ardent Supply Chain Solutions felt like walking through a dream where the gravity had been turned up by 50%. I swiped my badge at the turnstile in the lobby. Usually, it beeped a cheerful high note and the light turned green. Today, it beeped a low, discordant tone. The light stayed red. I stood there, a line of colleagues forming behind me. The heat rose in my cheeks. I swiped again. Nothing. The security guard, a man named Miller, whom I had chatted with about football every Monday for 3 years, looked up from his console. He did not smile. He did not wave. He pressed a button under his desk, and the turnstile unlocked with a heavy mechanical clunk. Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez, he said. His voice was flat. I walked through, feeling the eyes of the people behind me drilling into my back. It was a small thing, a badge error. But in a secure facility, there are no errors. There are only revocations. My access to the 4th floor, executive strategy, was gone. My access to the server room, gone. My access to the printer room on the 3rd floor, gone. I was confined to my floor, my hallway, my cubicle. It was a digital prison, and the walls were invisible. My calendar, usually a colorful mosaic of vendor calls and team syncs, had been wiped clean. In its place were 3 blocks of gray time labeled simply, meeting, legal, room 404, no agenda, no attendees listed. Just the time and the room. My colleagues knew. They had to know. People I had worked with for 5 years. People who had signed my birthday card and eaten my holiday cookies. Now looked at the floor when I passed. If we made eye contact, they offered tight, terrified smiles before hurrying away. I was contagious. I was the person under inquiry. Standing too close to me might get them flagged by the audit algorithms. I sat at my desk and stared at my screensaver. I did not try to work. I knew my permissions were stripped. I was just a body in a chair, waiting for the system to decide how to dispose of me. At 10 o'clock, I went to room 404. Sarah Jenkins was there, Arthur Sterling was there, and there was a new face, a woman in a navy suit that looked like a uniform, though it had no badges. She had short, graying hair and eyes that seemed to photograph everything they looked at. "Sit down, Nora," Sterling said. I sat. The chair was cold. "This is Special Agent Vance," Sterling said. "She is a liaison from the Office of Trade Security." The Office of Trade Security, OTS. They were the people who tracked dual-use technology. They were the ones who stopped microchips from ending up in missiles in countries we were not supposed to be trading with. They were not the police. They were the regulators. They were the ones who could shut a company down with a single piece of paper. "Ms. Rodriguez," Agent Vance said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. It was more terrifying than shouting. "We are conducting a preliminary assessment regarding a potential breach of export controls involving Project Cedar Harbor. We understand you were the lead operations manager for that account." "Yes," I said. We have reason to believe that the audit discrepancies you noted, specifically regarding the weight variance and the mislabeled components, are of significant interest to our office. We are currently tracking a network of procurement agents who target logistics providers to bypass screening protocols." She placed a folder on the table. It was thin. "We are issuing a formal preservation order for all your personal devices," she said. "We need to understand the scope of the exposure. Did anyone outside of Ardent Supply Chain Solutions solicit information from you regarding specific component serial numbers?" "Solicit from me?" "No," I said. "But my family—" "We are aware of the situation with your brother," she said, cutting me off. "We are asking if anyone approached you directly." "No," I said. "Good," she said. "For your sake. I hope that remains true. If we find that you facilitated this transfer, knowingly or through gross negligence, the penalties are severe. We are talking about federal prison. Ms. Rodriguez, 10 years minimum." She let that hang in the air. 10 years. "We will be coordinating with your internal counsel," Vance said. "Do not leave the state. Do not discuss this investigation. If you are contacted by any third party asking about Cedar Harbor, you are to notify us immediately. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. When I left, my legs felt like water. I walked back to my cubicle, sat down, and put my head in my hands. It wasn't just a family squabble anymore. It wasn't just a corporate policy violation. My mother and brother had walked into the middle of a federal counterintelligence operation. They were playing with uranium, and they thought they were stealing copper wire. At noon, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Come over for lunch. We need to sign some papers. Leo is making pasta." It sounded so normal, so domestic, but the phrase "sign some papers" made my stomach turn over. I left work. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I figured my badge swipe would tell them everything they needed to know. I drove to my mother's house. The street looked the same as it always did. Manicured lawns, basketball hoops in driveways, the deceptive peace of suburbia. When I walked in, the smell of garlic and boiling tomatoes hit me. Leo was at the stove, stirring a pot. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table. In front of her was a typed document. "Sit down, Nora," my mother said. She was smiling, but her eyes were tight, panicked. "Leo made your favorite sauce." "I am not hungry," I said. I remained standing. "What is that paper?" Leo turned off the burner and wiped his hands on a towel. He walked over and stood behind our mother, like a bodyguard. "It is a solution," Leo said. "Dale helped us draft it. It is simple, really. It is an affidavit." He slid the paper toward me. I looked at it. It was poorly formatted, written in a font that looked like it belonged on a wedding invitation. "I, Nora Rodriguez, hereby attest that on January 25th, I granted permission to my brother, Leo Rodriguez, to access my personal work files for the purpose of data backup and storage. I authorized him to transfer the folder Basic Work to his external drive. The subsequent use of these files was done with my full knowledge and consent. I read it twice. I looked up at them. "You want me to lie," I said. "It is not a lie." "Exactly," my mother said, her voice trembling. "It is a clarification. If you sign this, Nora, then it is not theft. It is just sharing, family sharing, and if you gave us permission, then the company cannot sue Leo. They cannot call the police. It becomes an internal matter. It becomes a conspiracy," I said. "Mom, do you have any idea what you are asking me to do? You are asking me to confess to a crime I did not commit. You want me to tell the federal government that I authorized the release of regulated data to a non-cleared individual." "It is just a piece of paper," Leo shouted. "Nobody is going to show it to the government. It is just for the company lawyers, to get them off our backs." "The company lawyers are talking to the Office of Trade Security," I said. "I met with a federal agent this morning. Leo, this morning. They are talking about prison time, 10 years. My mother's face went white. "Prison?" "Yes, prison," I said. "For export control violations. If I sign this, I am admitting that I helped you smuggle restricted data. I will go to jail. Is that what you want? You want me to go to jail so you don't have to face the consequences of what you did?" "Nobody is going to jail." Leo slammed his hand on the table. "Dale said if we have this paper, the investigation stops. He said they only care if it was unauthorized. If it was authorized, it is just a policy breach. You get fired. Maybe. But nobody gets arrested." "I get fired," I repeated. "I lose my career. I lose my clearance. I lose my pension. I lose everything I have built for 15 years. And I go to prison. Leo, Dale is lying to you. He is trying to set me up so I take the fall." "You are so selfish," my mother hissed. The change in her tone was instantaneous. The fear vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp rage. She stood up, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "We ask you for one thing," she said. "One small thing to save your brother, to save your family. And you worry about your pension? You worry about your career? What is a career? Nora, it is nothing. Family is everything. We changed your diapers. We fed you. We protected you. And now, when we need you to step up, you cowered out." "I am not cowarding out," I said, my voice shaking. "I am refusing to commit perjury." "You are ungrateful," she spat. "You think you are better than us because you wear a suit and drive a nice car. You look down on us. You think we are trash. Well, let me tell you something. Nora, without us, you are nothing. You are a lonely, bitter woman with no husband and no children and a job that does not love you back." The words hit me like stones. They were the things I whispered to myself in my darkest moments, and hearing them come out of her mouth was devastating. But then, just as quickly, she crumbled, her face crumpled, and she began to sob. She reached out her hands toward me. "Please, Nora," she wept. "Please, I cannot lose Leo. I cannot let them take him. He is all I have. Please just sign the paper. For me. Do it for your mother." It was emotional whiplash, rage to tears, attack to victimhood. It was a performance I had seen 1,000 times, but it still made my heart ache. I looked at her, this woman who had raised me, who was now asking me to destroy myself to save the son she clearly loved more. "No," I said. The word hung there. Absolute. "I will not sign it," I said. "I will not go to prison for you, and I will not let Dale Bannister win." I turned and walked out of the kitchen. "Nora!" Leo shouted. "If you walk out that door, you are dead to us. You hear me? Dead." I kept walking. I opened the front door and stepped out into the cool afternoon air. My hands were trembling so hard I dropped my keys. I had to kneel on the pavement to pick them up. As I stood up, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. From a number I did not recognize. Stop talking to lawyers. Families get ruined when people talk too much. Be a good daughter. I stared at the screen. The phrasing. Be a good daughter. It wasn't Leo. Leo wasn't subtle enough for that. And it wasn't my mother. I remembered a voicemail I had overheard on my mother's phone weeks ago. A deep, smooth voice saying, Elena, you have to be firm. Be a good girl and do what I say. It was Dale. He was watching, or Leo was texting him play-by-play updates. A chill went down my spine. This message wasn't just a threat. It was a confirmation. I got into my car and locked the doors. I sat there for a moment, breathing in the scent of stale coffee and fear. I had thought the breach was about money. I thought Dale wanted the files to sell them. But as I looked at the text, a darker thought formed in my mind. Why steal the files that way? Why have the brother do it with a USB drive? Why have the cousin send a screenshot? It was messy. It was loud. It was almost guaranteed to be caught. Unless getting caught was part of the plan, maybe the goal wasn't just the data. Maybe the goal was to compromise me. If I had signed that paper, if I had admitted to authorizing the breach, I would be owned. Dale would have proof that I had violated federal law. He could blackmail me forever. Get me this file. Nora, approve this shipment. Nora, or I send the affidavit to the FBI. It was a recruitment drive. He wasn't trying to steal a few files. He was trying to turn me into an asset. He was trying to create an insider threat by using my family as the leverage to break me. And my mother and brother were too stupid, or too desperate, to see it. I started the car and drove. I didn't go back to work. I went to my apartment building. I needed Ben. I knocked on his door again. It was 3 p.m, but he was home. He pulled me inside before I could say a word. You were right, Ben said. He looked excited, in that detached, academic way. I pulled the router logs like you asked. I cross-referenced the MAC addresses. He led me to his monitors. He pointed to a line of code highlighted in yellow. This is the device that accessed your personal Wi-Fi network on Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. The time the fake email was sent, he pointed to another line. And this is the device that connected to your Wi-Fi 3 months ago. When your brother came over to help you move that bookshelf, the strings of numbers and letters were identical. It is the same device, Ben said. An iPhone 13. Unless your brother cloned his MAC address, which, no offense, I do not think he knows how to do. This proves his phone was the gateway. And the laptop? I asked. I checked the event viewer logs from the photos you took, Ben said. The user profile that was active during the email creation, it had a specific browser extension installed. Camel, Camel, Camel. It is a price tracker for Amazon. I do not use that, I said. But Leo does, I said. He is always looking for deals on flipping electronics. Exactly, Ben said. It is a digital fingerprint. He logged into his Google account on your Chrome browser to check a price, or maybe it synced automatically. He left his footprints all over the crime scene. It proves he was there, I said. It proves he sent the email. It proves someone with his phone and his Google account was there, Ben corrected. But yeah, in court? That is a slam dunk. I looked at the screen. The numbers were cold, hard facts. They cut through the gaslighting. They cut through the "we did it for love" narrative. Can you print this? I asked. Can you make it look official? Like a report? I can generate a forensic timeline, Ben said. Standard format, chain of custody notations. It will look like it came from a lab. Do it, I said. While Ben worked, I sat on his futon and opened my notebook. I began to organize the disclosure package. I had the timeline. I had the screenshots of the text messages from Tommy. I had the photo of the fake email. I had the metadata. And now, I had the forensic link to Leo's device. I added one more section. Suspected external actor, Dale Bannister. Affiliation, unknown/global path solutions, dissolved. Methodology, manipulation of family members to coerce insider access. Threat, Blackmail and recruitment of cleared personnel. I looked at the page. It was a dossier. It was the kind of thing I used to read in training manuals about how to spot a spy. I never thought I would be writing one about my own mother. I felt a deep, aching mourning settling in my chest. It wasn't the sharp pain of the argument anymore. It was the heavy, dull grief of a death. I was killing my relationship with my family. I was severing the cord. After this, there would be no Sunday dinners, no Christmas mornings, no emergency calls when the car broke down. I would be an orphan, a self-made orphan, but I would be free, and I would be innocent in the eyes of the law. "Here," Ben said, handing me a stack of warm paper. "It is ready." "Thank you, Ben," I said. "You saved my life." "I just read the logs," he said. He looked uncomfortable. "Good luck, Nora." I drove back to Ardent. It was 5:30. The parking lot was emptying out. I walked into the lobby. My badge still denied me. But the guard, Miller, buzzed me in without a word. He looked at me with pity now. I went up to the 4th floor. I didn't have an appointment, but I knew Sterling would be there. Lawyers lived in their offices during a crisis. I walked past the receptionist and knocked on the glass door of the conference room. Sterling was there, alone. He was eating a sandwich out of a plastic container and reading a thick binder. He looked up. He saw the stack of papers in my hand. He waved me in. "I have the package," I said, placing the dossier on the table. Sterling wiped his mouth with a napkin and closed the binder. He pulled the stack of papers toward him. He put on his reading glasses. I watched him read. He was fast. He scanned the timeline, the logs, the analysis. He paused at the section about Dale Bannister. He paused again at the solution document Leo had tried to make me sign. I had written down the text of it from memory. When he finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me. "This is thorough," he said. "Extremely thorough." "It is the truth," I said. "It shows that I was the target, not the perpetrator. It shows that I refused to cooperate with the cover-up. It shows that there is an external actor driving this." "It does," Sterling agreed. "This changes the narrative. It moves you from suspect to cooperating witness. It helps you, Nora, it helps you a lot." "But?" I asked. I heard the but in his voice. "But it also gives the OTS and the FBI a roadmap," Sterling said. "You have handed them the names, the dates, the motives. You have done their work for them." "That is what you told me to do," I said. "Self-disclosure." "Yes," Sterling said, "but you need to understand the next step. Now that we have this, now that we have a credible allegation of a coordinated attempt to penetrate a secure supply chain, the investigators are not just going to read your report." He leaned forward. "They are going to want to interview the subjects," he said. "They are going to go to your mother's house. They are going to bring Leo in for questioning, and they are not going to be gentle. They will use this dossier to pick apart their stories. They will catch them in lies. And when your mother realizes that you provided the evidence that trapped her—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I knew what my mother would see. She wouldn't see a daughter trying to save herself from federal prison. She wouldn't see a professional doing her duty. She would see a snitch. She would see a traitor. She would see the child she raised calling the cops on her own flesh and blood. The emotional fallout would be nuclear. It would be ugly, screaming, public destruction. "I know," I said. My voice was a whisper. "I know she will hate me." "She might," Sterling said. "But she also might be in danger. If this Dale Bannister is who you think he is, if he is a professional facilitator for illicit procurement, he is not going to be happy that his operation has been blown. By giving us this, you are lighting a flare. You are drawing attention to him." "He threatened me," I said. "He told me families get ruined." "Then let us ruin his," Sterling said. His voice was hard now. "We will transmit this package to the OTS liaison tonight. They will likely move quickly. Tomorrow is Saturday. I would expect activity." "Activity," I repeated. It was a polite word for a raid. "Go home, Nora," Sterling said. "Lock your door. Do not answer your phone. If your family comes to your house, do not let them in. Call 911. 911, I said. On my mother. If she is with a man who is threatening you? Yes. I stood up. I felt lighter. But it was the lightness of ash. I had burned it all down. Will I keep my job? I asked. Sterling looked at me. He didn't lie. I do not know, he said, but at least you will keep your freedom. I walked out of the office. The sun had set. The parking lot was dark. I drove home, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds, expecting to see Dale's car, or Leo's truck, or a black SUV. When I got to my apartment, I deadbolted the door. I wedged a chair under the handle. I closed all the blinds. I sat on my sofa in the dark. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't look at my phone. I just waited. I thought about the pot roast. I thought about the way my mother used to brush my hair when I was little. I thought about Leo teaching me how to ride a bike. I packed those memories away in a box in my mind, and I nailed the lid shut. They were from a different life, a life before basic work. Now, there was only the wait for the knock on the door, and the terrible, chilling certainty that when it came, it wouldn't be opportunity knocking. It would be the end of the world as I knew it. Saturday morning arrived with a sky the color of a bruise. I had not slept. I had sat in the dark of my apartment, listening to the silence, waiting for the inevitable escalation. Arthur Sterling had told me to lock my door and wait for the authorities. But as the sun came up, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air of my living room, I realized I could not just wait. If I waited, I was a victim. If I waited, I was letting Dale Bannister and my family write the ending of my story. I needed to look them in the eye one last time. Not to save them. I knew that ship had sailed, but to confirm what I already knew. I needed to see the lie on their faces before I handed them over to the truth. I showered, dressed in my office armor, slacks, a blouse, a blazer, and drove to my mother's house. I did not speed. I did not listen to the radio. I rehearsed my lines. No screaming, no crying, just facts. When I pulled into the driveway, Leo's truck was there. So was a silver sedan I did not recognize. Dale's car. Presumably. I walked up the path. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside. They were in the living room. My mother was on the sofa, clutching a mug of coffee. Leo was pacing by the window, and sitting in my father's old armchair, looking entirely too comfortable, was a man I assumed was Dale. The conversation stopped when I entered. "Nora," my mother said. Her voice was thin, hopeful. "You came back. I knew you would come back. I knew you wouldn't leave us hanging." "I am not here to sign anything, Mom," I said. I stood in the center of the room, keeping my distance. "I am here to ask one question, and I want the truth. No stories, no guilt trips." "We already told you the truth," Leo said, stopping his pacing. He looked exhausted, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. "No, you told me a script," I said. "I want to know the origin. Who told you to target my laptop? Who told you to look for basic work? Who told you about the audit notes?" "It was Leo's idea," my mother said immediately. She pointed a trembling finger at him. "He said Tommy needed help. He said it would be easy." "It was not my idea," Leo shot back. "It was Tommy's idea. Tommy called me crying about the arbitration. He said he needed leverage. I just tried to help him find it." "And Tommy says it was a friend," I said. Round and round we go. I looked at them. Their denials were too quick, too synchronized. It was like watching a bad play where the actors had memorized their lines but didn't understand the characters. They were passing the blame like a hot potato, trying to keep it in motion so it wouldn't burn anyone's hands. "You are all lying," I said calmly. "None of you are smart enough to know what an ECCN is. None of you know what a bill of lading variance looks like. You were coached." I turned my eyes to the man in the armchair. He was handsome in a generic, aging salesman kind of way. Silver hair, a polo shirt that was slightly too tight, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You must be Dale," I said. He stood up. He was tall. He moved with a practiced, fluid grace. Nora, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. Elena talks about you constantly. She is very proud of her successful daughter. Cut the charm, I said. I know who you are. I know about Global Path Solutions. I know about the lawsuits. Dale didn't flinch. He chuckled. A low, warm sound. Ah, the internet. A wonderful tool for misinformation. Business is messy. Nora, you know that. Sometimes ventures fail. That does not make a man a criminal. Stealing federal data makes a man a criminal, I said. Stealing is such a harsh word, Dale said. He took a step toward me, hands raised in a placating gesture. Let us call it resource sharing. Look, Nora, everyone is tense. Emotions are high. I think we need to de-escalate. Your mother is very upset. My mother is upset because you terrified her into thinking she needs to cover up a felony, I said. Nobody is covering up anything, Dale said smoothly. We are just trying to clarify the narrative. You bring work home, right? Everyone does. You download files for review. You put them on a drive to move them between devices. It is standard practice. If you just admit that you move those files for your own use, for Project Sandbox, maybe, then this whole thing goes away. I froze. Project Sandbox. It was a nickname, a stupid, throwaway nickname my team at Ardent used for a specific testing environment where we ran shipping simulations. We never used it in official emails. We only used it in the break room or on internal chat threads. Dale Bannister, a failed freight broker who had never set foot in Ardent, had just used an internal code name. Where did you hear that name? I asked. My voice was very quiet. What name? Dale asked, blinking innocently. Sandbox, I said. You just said Project Sandbox. That is not a public term. That is internal Ardent slang. Who told you that? Dale's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. I must have heard you mention it, or Leo. I never mention work to Leo, I said. And Leo wouldn't remember it if I did. You have a source inside the company, don't you? Or you have access to my chat logs. You are being paranoid. Nora, Dale said, his tone hardening slightly. I am just trying to help your family navigate a difficult situation. If you are going to be hostile, maybe you should leave. I am not leaving until I get the truth from my brother, I said. I turned to Leo. Leo, kitchen, now. Leo looked at Dale. Dale gave him a barely perceptible nod. We walked into the kitchen. I closed the door. Leo, I said, Dale is not helping you. He is using information that he shouldn't have. He knows things about my job that even I barely know. You have to tell me what is going on. Why did you send that fake email? Leo leaned against the counter. He looked sick. His skin was gray, clammy. I had to buy time, he whispered. Time for what? Time for the deal to go through, Leo said. Dale said the buyer was getting cold feet. They wanted proof that you were on board. They wanted to know that the source was reliable. He said if I sent an email from your account, it would prove you were part of it. It would close the deal. There is a buyer, I said. Who is it? Is it a company? A person? I do not know, Leo said, his voice cracking. Dale just calls them the partners. They are foreign, Asian, I think, or maybe Middle Eastern. I do not know. Nora, I just know they promised 50 grand, and Dale said he could keep the bigger people from coming after us. Bigger people? The people Dale owes money to, Leo said. He is in deep. Nora, he owes some bad guys a lot of cash. He said if we didn't help him get this data, those guys would come for Mom. He said they would burn the house down. I stared at him. The layers of the lie were peeling away, revealing the rot underneath. It wasn't just greed. It was debt. Dale was squeezing my family to pay off his own loans to loan sharks, and he had terrified Leo into becoming an accomplice. He is lying to you, Leo, I said. There are no loan sharks coming for Mom. He is manipulating you. But you sent that email. You forged my name. Do you realize you framed me to pay off his debt? I did not mean to frame you. Leo started to cry. I thought if you were involved, you could fix it. You are smart. You always fix everything. I cannot fix treason, Leo, I said. I took a breath. Give me your phone. What? Your phone? And the laptop you used? And the USB drive? Give them to me. I am going to take them to the lawyers. We are going to turn them in. It is the only way to show you were coerced. Leo's eyes went wide. He stepped back, clutching his pocket. No. No way. Leo, please. The FBI is coming. If you hand it over voluntarily, it looks better. If they have to kick down your door and take it, you are done. I cannot, Leo shouted. Dale will kill me. He said if I gave up the devices, he would tell them it was all my idea. He has texts, Nora. He has texts where I agreed to do it. He set me up too. I know he did, I said. That is why we need to get ahead of him. No! Leo shoved me. It wasn't a hard shove, but it was enough to make me stumble back against the refrigerator. You are not taking my phone. You are just trying to save your own ass. You do not care what happens to me. I am trying to keep you out of federal prison, I yelled back. Just make it go away. The scream came from the doorway. My mother was standing there. She had opened the door. Dale was standing behind her, watching with a cool, detached interest. Just make it stop. Nora, my mother sobbed. Why do you have to be so righteous? Why can you not just fix it? Sign the paper. Tell them it was a mistake. Why do you hate us so much? I looked at her. Her face was twisted with fear and a desperate, childish desire for the world to be simple again. She didn't care about the law. She didn't care about the truth. She just wanted the noise to stop. She wanted me to wave a magic wand and absorb the consequences so she could go back to her life. I do not hate you, I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was breaking. I love you. That is why this hurts so much. I looked at Dale. You are going to lose, I said. The company knows. The authorities know. You can threaten me. You can gaslight them. But the machine is already moving, and it is going to crush you. Dale smiled. It was a shark smile. We will see, Nora. Families are fragile things. They break so easily. I walked past him. I walked past my sobbing mother. I walked past my brother, who was curled in on himself against the counter. I walked out of the house. I got into my car. I locked the doors. I started the engine. I drove 2 blocks and pulled over into a church parking lot. I put the car in park and leaned my head against the steering wheel. I cried. I cried for the brother who taught me to catch a baseball. I cried for the mother who used to make me soup when I was sick. I cried because I knew, with absolute certainty, that they would sacrifice me to save themselves. They had already done it. They had chosen Dale's lies over my truth because the lies were easier. The lies promised a solution where nobody had to pay. My truth demanded a price they weren't willing to pay, so they were billing it to me. I wiped my face. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red, but I looked fierce. I picked up my phone, my burner phone, since my real one was in evidence, and dialed Arthur Sterling's number. This is Sterling. It is Nora, I said. I just left them. They refused to cooperate. My brother admitted to sending the email to satisfy a buyer. Dale Bannister is there. He used an internal project code name. Project Sandbox. He has a source inside Ardent. Sandbox? Sterling's voice sharpened. You are sure? Positive. He tried to get me to admit I downloaded files for that project. Okay, Sterling said. That confirms the espionage angle. We are no longer looking at a family dispute. We are looking at a penetration. What do I do? You go home, Sterling said. You stay there. The interview with the OTS agents is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the federal building. Do not be late. I will be there, I said. And Nora? Yes. You did the right thing. It does not feel like it, but you did. It feels like betrayal, I said. It is survival, Sterling said. There is a difference. I hung up. I drove home. The rest of the day was a blur of anxiety. I paced my apartment. I reviewed my timeline. I practiced my answers. I did not authorize the access. I reported the breach as soon as I confirmed the data loss. I have no contact with the buyer. My family was manipulated by a third party. I repeated the sentences until they lost their meaning, until they became just sounds. I needed to be a robot tomorrow. I needed to be a recording device. If I showed emotion, if I hesitated, they would think I was hiding something. Night fell. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat by the window, watching the street. At 8 o'clock, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. If you do this, you will destroy your mother. Please, Nora, do not go to the police. We can fix this. Just come back. We love you. I stared at the words. We love you. It was the ultimate weapon. Love. They were holding it to my head like a gun. Do what we want, or you are killing us. I felt the weight of it. The crushing, suffocating weight of filial duty. It would be so easy to give in, to sign the affidavit, to take the fall, to say, yes, I authorized it. It was my mistake. Fire me, but leave them alone. I could save them. I could be the martyr. But then I thought about Dale's smile. I thought about the text message. Be a good daughter. I thought about the fake email in my sent folder. They weren't asking for my help. They were demanding my submission. They were demanding that I let them consume me. I looked at the text one last time, then I deleted it. I did not reply. I went to my closet and laid out my suit for the next morning. I ironed the shirt. I polished my shoes. I was going to the federal building. I was going to tell the truth. And if that destroyed my mother, then she had built her life on a foundation that couldn't support the weight of reality. I turned off the phone and went to bed. I didn't sleep, but I laid there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the dawn to bring the end of my life as a daughter and the beginning of my life as a witness. The federal building was a monolith of gray stone and tinted glass, standing like a fortress against the Saturday morning sky. I walked through the metal detector at 8:50 in the morning. I had no phone, no bag, and no jewelry. I carried only a plastic folder containing the dossier I had compiled with Ben and the crushing weight of the decision I had made. Nora Rodriguez, I told the guard. I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Agent Vance. He checked a list, nodded, and handed me a visitor badge. It was a paper sticker. It felt flimsy against the lapel of my suit jacket, a temporary label for a temporary person. I was escorted to a conference room on the 5th floor. It was not like the glass-walled fishbowl at Ardent. This room had no windows. The walls were covered in soundproofing foam. The table was scratched metal. The air smelled of stale coffee and ozone. Agent Vance was there, sitting at the head of the table. Next to her was a man I did not know, a man with a buzz cut and a suit that looked like it concealed a shoulder holster. Ms. Rodriguez, Vance said. She did not stand up. This is Agent Miller, Homeland Security Investigations. Take a seat. I sat down. I placed my folder on the table. I am cooperating, I said. My voice was steady, though my hands were cold. I have brought a timeline of events, logs of the unauthorized access, and evidence of the coercion. We have your timeline, Vance said. She tapped a tablet in front of her. Mr. Sterling sent over the digital package last night. It was informative. It is the truth, I said. We believe you. Agent Miller said. His voice was deeper than Vance's, rougher. But we are not here to talk about your brother's password guessing skills. We are here to talk about the network. He slid a photograph across the table. It was a grainy surveillance shot taken from a distance. It showed two men standing on a street corner. One of them was Dale Bannister. The other was a man of Asian descent wearing a baseball cap. Do you recognize the man with Mr. Bannister? Miller asked. No, I said. I have never seen him. That is Henry Liu, Miller said. He is a procurement agent for a shell company based in Macau. We have been tracking him for 6 months. He specializes in acquiring dual-use technology for prohibited end users. Specifically, he looks for components that can be repurposed for guidance systems. I felt the blood drain from my face. Guidance systems. Missiles. My brother thought he was helping a friend win a business dispute, I whispered. He thought he was selling leverage for $50,000. $50,000 is the down payment, Vance said. The actual value of the data your family stole, the audit notes, the vendor vulnerabilities, the shipment schedules, is in the millions. Not because of the hardware itself, but because it exposes the holes in the U.S. export shield. It tells them exactly which vendors are sloppy with their paperwork. Dale knew, I said. He knew exactly what to ask for. Mr. Bannister is a middleman, Miller said. He finds vulnerable people with access. He grooms them. He creates a crisis, like a fake arbitration or a debt, and then offers a solution that involves a small betrayal. He turns families into assets. He used Project Sandbox, I said. He used an internal code name, Vance nodded. That is what concerns us. Ms. Rodriguez, Project Sandbox was a compartmentalized test. The only way Mr. Bannister could know that name is if he has another source inside Ardent, or if he has been monitoring your communications for a long time. Monitoring me? We found malware on your home router, Miller said. Likely installed months ago, probably when your brother fixed your Wi-Fi. They have been listening to your calls. They have been reading your chats. They knew you were working on the Cedar Harbor audit before you even got the preservation notice. I felt sick. Physically sick. The invasion went deeper than a stolen password. They had been living in my walls. My mother's boyfriend had been listening to me breathe. We need you to think, Nora, Vance said. Her voice was urgent now. Think back to the last 6 months. Networking events, conferences, happy hours. Did anyone approach you? Did anyone ask seemingly innocent questions about your work, about your frustrations with the company? I do not know, I stammered. I meet a lot of people. Think, Miller commanded. A man, late 40s, British accent, goes by the name Simon. I shook my head. No Simon? Okay, Vance said. She closed the folder on her tablet. You have given us enough to move on the domestic cell. We are executing warrants today. On my mother? I asked. The question came out as a squeak. On the location where the data is currently being stored, Vance said diplomatically, and on the individuals in possession of it. Am I under arrest? I asked. Not at this time, Vance said. You are a material witness. But Nora, do not go back to your mother's house. Go home, stay inside, and if your brother calls, do not answer. The interview lasted another hour. They went through every document in my folder. They asked about the specific dates Leo had visited. They asked about Tommy's financial troubles. They were building a cage, bar by bar, and they were using my memories to weld it shut. When I finally left the building, it was noon. The sun was high and bright, a cruel contrast to the darkness in my mind. I got into my car and drove toward my apartment. I wanted to crawl into bed and sleep for a week. I wanted to wake up and find out I was still a boring operations manager with a nagging mother and a goofy brother. But as I turned onto my street, I saw the lights. Blue and red strobe lights were bouncing off the brick facade of my apartment building. There were 3 police cruisers blocking the entrance to the parking lot. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked on the grass. My heart hammered against my ribs. They lied to me. They had told me to go home because they wanted to arrest me there. They wanted to make a scene. They wanted to parade me in front of my neighbors in handcuffs. I slowed the car, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I prepared myself. I would not cry. I would not run. I would step out of the car and take it. I pulled up to the curb, just outside the police tape. An officer held up his hand to stop me. I rolled down the window. I live here, I said. I am Nora Rodriguez. The officer looked at a clipboard. He spoke into his radio. We have the sister. She is on the perimeter. He looked back at me. Stay in your vehicle, ma'am. Do not enter the scene. I sat there, frozen. I looked past the officer, toward the parking lot, and then I saw them. They weren't coming out of my building. They were standing by a white pickup truck, Leo's truck. There were agents in windbreakers with HSI printed in yellow letters on the back. They had a man pressed against the side of the truck. He was handcuffed. His head was bowed, but I recognized the silver hair. It was Dale, and standing a few feet away, flanked by 2 uniformed officers, were my mother and Leo. My mother was screaming. I couldn't hear the words through the glass, but I saw her face. It was contorted, red, ugly with hysteria. She was pointing at the agents, flailing her arms. Leo was not screaming. He was leaning against the bed of his truck, looking like he was about to vomit. He was pale, shaking, staring at the ground. I opened my car door. "Ma'am, stay in the vehicle," the officer shouted. "That is my family," I said. I stepped out. My legs felt heavy, like I was walking through deep water. I walked toward the yellow tape. I could hear them now. "You cannot do this," my mother was shrieking. "He is a businessman. He is a consultant. You are making a mistake. Tell them, Leo, tell them he didn't do anything." "Mrs. Rodriguez, step back," an agent said calmly. He was holding a plastic evidence bag. Inside it was a silver laptop, my brother's laptop. "That is my son's computer," she yelled. "You have no right." "We have a federal warrant, ma'am," the agent said, "issued by the United States District Court." Then, she saw me. My mother stopped screaming. She turned slowly, her eyes locking onto mine across the expanse of asphalt. For a second, I thought she would be relieved. I thought she would run to me. Instead, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. "You!" she screamed. She lunged against the officer holding her back. "You did this! You called them! You traitor!" The word hung in the air, sharper than the siren. Traitor. "Mom, stop!" Leo moaned. He looked up at me. His eyes were dead. "Nora, they have the drive. They have everything." "I told you," I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried in the silence of the lot. "I told you to stop." "You set us up," my mother shrieked. "You invited us here so they could ambush us. You set a trap for your own mother." "I didn't invite you," I said. "Why are you here? Mom, why are you in my parking lot?" "We came to return the files," she lied. I could hear the lie in the crack of her voice. "We were bringing them back to you, to fix it." "Liar," I said. Agent Miller walked over to me. He ducked under the tape. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, "we intercepted them 20 minutes ago. Mr. Bannister met your brother here to take possession of the hard drive. He was planning to leave the country tonight. He has a ticket to Hong Kong booked for 6 p.m. I looked at Dale. He had lifted his head. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked at me with a cold, flat assessment. He realized his asset had turned into his executioner. "And my brother?" I asked. "Your brother handed him the drive," Miller said. "We have it on video. That is distribution of controlled data. It is a felony." I looked at Leo. He was crying now, silent, heaving sobs. He was 29 years old, but he looked like a child who had broken a vase and knew there was no glue in the world that could fix it. "Is he being arrested?" "Yes," Miller said. "He is being taken into custody for conspiracy and theft of trade secrets. Your mother is being detained for obstruction." "Obstruction?" "She tried to physically stop Agent Vance from seizing the laptop," Miller said without emotion. "She bit an officer." I looked at my mother. She was panting, her hair wild, her blouse torn at the shoulder. She looked insane. She looked like a stranger. "Nora!" she screamed again. Her tone changed. The anger evaporated, replaced by that terrifying, manipulative desperation. "Nora, please, tell them you authorized it. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." "I cannot do that, Mom," I said. "You can," she begged. She fell to her knees on the pavement. You are the manager. If you say it was okay, they have to let us go. Please, Nora, look at your brother. They are putting handcuffs on him. Do something. I did do something, I said. I told the truth. The truth? She spat the word like it was poison. What is the truth? That you hate us? That you want to see us destroyed? The truth is that you stole from me, I said. The truth is that you tried to frame me to pay off your boyfriend's debt. He loves me, she wailed, pointing at Dale. He loves me. He was trying to save us. He was selling you, I said. Agents were moving Dale toward the SUV. As he passed me, he stopped for a second. Check your sent folder. Nora, he said softly. The email wasn't the only thing we planted. Agent Miller shoved him forward. Keep moving. I felt a cold chill ripple through me. What else? Miller turned to me. Ignore him. He's trying to rattle you. We will scrub your devices. If there's anything else, we will find it. Agent Miller, I said. There is one more thing. You asked me about a Simon. Yes? I don't know a Simon, I said. But about 6 months ago, at a supply chain mixer in Chicago, I met a woman. Her name was Sarah. Not my boss. A different Sarah. She said she worked for a staffing agency. She asked a lot of questions about our vendor vetting process. She bought me 2 drinks. Miller pulled out a small notepad. What did she look like? Blonde? British accent? Maybe 40? Miller looked at Vance, who was standing by the truck. He nodded. Simon Lee uses a female alias sometimes, Miller said. Or an associate. Thank you. Nora, that connects the circle. It wasn't just a random grifter targeting a lonely woman. It was a targeted operation. They had scouted me. They had identified my weak point, and my weak point wasn't alcohol, or gambling, or greed. My weak point was my family. They had sent Dale to seduce my mother specifically because they knew she was the key to unlocking my brother. And my brother was the key to unlocking my laptop. I had been played. We had all been played. But I was the only one who had refused to play the final hand. The officers were lifting my mother off the ground. She was limp now, weeping softly. Nora, she whispered as they walked her past me. Nora, baby, please. She reached out a hand. Her fingers brushed the sleeve of my jacket. Tell them it was all you, she whispered. Her eyes were wide, pleading, terrifyingly lucid. You are strong. You can survive prison. She looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see my mother. I saw a woman I didn't know, a woman who would never forgive me for saving myself. Then you have no mother, she hissed. I know, I said. The officer guided her into the back of a cruiser. She didn't look back. Leo was placed in the second car. He looked at me through the window, mouthing the word, please, until the car drove away. I stood in the parking lot as the sirens faded. The HSI agents were packing up the evidence. The yellow tape was fluttering in the breeze. Agent Miller walked over to me. You okay? He asked. No, I said. They are going to be processed downtown, he said. You will likely be called to testify before the grand jury next week. We will provide a victim advocate if you need one. I do not need one, I said. Okay, go inside. Nora, get some rest. It is over. I nodded. I turned and walked toward my building. It was over. The investigation. The threat. The fear of prison. But as I walked into my silent apartment and locked the door behind me, I knew that the real sentence had just begun. I walked to the window and looked down at the empty parking spot where Leo's truck had been. I had won. I had protected the supply chain. I had upheld the law. I was a good citizen. But as the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across my living room, I realized that revenge stories don't always end with a triumph. Sometimes, they end with a survivor standing in the wreckage, realizing that the cost of justice was the only thing she had ever really loved. I sat down on the floor, in the dark, and for the first time since the basic work folder was opened, I let myself scream. Thank you for listening to family accessed my basic work files until Homeland Security teams arrived. This story explored the terrifying reality of how easily personal boundaries can bleed into professional catastrophe and the devastating choice between loyalty and survival. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with a family member to protect yourself? If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel for more realistic, high-stakes dramas. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Share your thoughts in English in the comments section. I read every single one. Stay safe and protect your passwords.